Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start with just a couple questions to Mary Ryan, and appreciate your attendance here at our hearing this morning. Certainly, it seems that there are a couple consistent themes from the post 9/11 analysis of the attacks on our country on September the 11th, 2001, that both the Joint Inquiry of Congress and the 9/11 Commission today have concluded that the consular affairs offices and our INS border were not integral parts of the strategy and included in the key meetings to fight the war on terrorism prior to 9/11. Would you agree with that?
No, sir. I think we always regarded ourselves as the outer ring of border security, with all that means. That our responsibility was to protect the country as well as to facilitate travel.
Well, that was not the question, Ms. Ryan. The question was, and due to your testimony here in the interviews that you conducted with our staff, you talk about, in the interview on 9/29/03, you say that you have no direct contact with anyone in the FBI prior to 9/11.
That's right.
Now, that seems to me that you were not integrally part of the national security apparatus to catch and detain terrorists that may be coming into our country, especially as our system, as you've noted in your testimony, has resource problems, has problems with contacts with the FBI, has problems communicating or not communicating through stovepipes, yet Al-Qaeda makes travel one of their highest priorities, maybe even higher than financing. So there doesn't seem to me to be the commensurate allocation of emphasis between our government adjusting to what Al-Qaeda is just about to do or planning to do throughout the 1990s and our response. Now, you say that we had no knowledge that any of the 19 terrorists we had information on them. How do we expect to have information on them if you have no contact with the FBI?
We were dependent on the FBI's providing information to us through tip-off and through Visa's Viper, if they had any information.
And how would you characterize their ability to provide that information to the tip-off program prior to 9/11?
I thought prior to 9/11 that they had the capability and that they knew about people who meant us harm. I learned after September 11th that they didn't have information and that they didn't know about people who mean us harm.
Would it surprise you, Ms. Ryan, to learn that there were more people in 2001 recommended for the tip-off list from the press and from a foreign government than from the FBI?
Yes, it would surprise me.
It would surprise you. Would it surprise you, according to our staff, that the FBI did not have a written policy on the tip-off program for recommending people to that list prior to 9/11?
When we set up the Visa's Viper program in 1993, we wanted the information that was developed at Post to be given to us at Post for inclusion in our system. And both the intelligence and law enforcement agencies were very reluctant to give us the information at Post because consular sections are unclassified environments, and they were concerned about protection of sources and methods. They said that they were comfortable with providing the information through the Intelligence and Research Bureau, and which would then put it into tip-off. I believed them.
Okay, well, you believe them, but in an interview with the 9/11 Commission staff, you say that you were outraged when you learned that government agencies knew things, that two hijackers had this information, and it was never passed on to the tip-off program until they already had their visas. Now, outraged seems to me not gravely disappointed, not very upset. Outraged seems to me that you're indicating that mistakes were made, that terrible communication failures were part of this.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And please elaborate. We need to fix this problem as well. And from your further interviews with the 9/11 Commission, with your further interviews with the 9/11 Commission staff, you go on to say that you don't think that this problem has been solved in subsequent meetings post 9/11 with the FBI.
Shortly after September 11th, my senior staff and I met with the senior staff and the DCI, Mr. Tennant. And at that meeting, we were told that the CIA had passed information on 2 of the terrorists to the FBI in January of 2000.
Ms. Ryan, is this the meeting with George Tenet, Cofer Black, George Lannon, Ken Duncan, Wayne Griffith?
Yes,
and
sir.
others? Okay, thank you.
It was at that meeting that we learned that there was information in the hands of parts of our government on 2 of the terrorists that was never given to the Bureau of Consular Affairs, never given to INR, to the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, for inclusion into tip-off. So yes, I was outraged. I was furious. I'm still angry about it.
And do you think that this fury and this outrage that you express now, are we going to feel the same way if something else happens, if this problem hasn't been solved? After the meeting, however, Ryan said Consular Affairs got more information from the CIA, but nothing more from the FBI. That's your interview. This is post 9/11.
We got tremendous increase in information from the CIA. The remedy that we sought to get the information from the FBI was from the Congress. And included in the Patriot Act was the requirement that the FBI give us all of their NCIC-3 information. So we got an additional 8 million records of criminal aliens, terrorists, that the FBI had, that they had refused to give us without the legislation because we were not a law enforcement agency.
So finally, Ms. Ryan, how would you categorize the pre-9/11 relationship and exchange of information that you had with the FBI?
It was not sufficient.
Enough to make you furious and outraged after 9/11?
Yes, sir.
And how would you categorize the communication that you had with the CIA pre-9/11? Outrage, fury?
I said at one of the hearings in 2001 that I thought 9/11 was the result of either a colossal intelligence failure or a failure to share information. I think now that it was both.
So we don't have stovepipe problem here. We have a steel wall problem here prior to 9/11.
We certainly had problems getting information that we thought we had, that we believed we had, that we needed to protect the country. Now, there were 17 others who didn't come to anybody's attention. But 2 were known about, and those 2 we also should have known about.
Finally, so my colleagues can ask some questions, you're also quoted in one of your interviews as saying, quote, you have no recollection of having learned about Tenet's, it's a director of the CIA, declaration of war on al-Qaeda in 1998.
No, that's not correct. I knew about the war on al-Qaeda. Our embassies were blown up in 1998. I lost colleagues and friends in Nairobi.
That wasn't my question. My question was not the war on al-Qaeda. It was the director of the CIA's declaration of war on al-Qaeda. Were you aware of his memo that was circulated at the CIA on the war, or did you learn of it through the newspapers?
It was in
and
the media that he had declared war on al-Qaeda.
So you read about the declaration in the media, not through something that was circulated directly from you, from Langley,
not that I remember.
or from a government
Internally,
document?
government, no. Not that I remember.
Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.